So, welcome back, friends. Let us now talk about the phases of Indian diaspora. So, when we talk about Indian diaspora, and we have been talking about it a lot, and we believe that this is one of the most important diasporas around the world, and especially so with reference to our country. Such a strong diaspora with such important position and such impact has not been created in a day. Although we have earlier also referred to the different phases of Indian diaspora, I deem it important, friends, that we talk about it in some greater detail in order to understand it fully. So let us begin talking about the phases of Indian diaspora, how the people of in India started crossing borders for different reasons to different parts of the world, and how these different diasporas uh, have contributed finally to that Indian diaspora effect that we have been talking about now. So, as I said earlier as well, Indian diaspora is not a recent phenomenon, although we might tend to think that post independence there has been the real exodus of Indian people. But then the history bears witness that this has been there earlier as well. So, for centuries, Indians have been migrating to different geographical locations, um, gradually contributing to this strong Indian diaspora. And there have been always some push and pull factors, like business, colonialism, economic opportunities, and globalization, to name a few, which have contributed to this migration of people from our country. So, to quote Sharma, he observes that Indians have migrated since the dawn of history. They initially migrated to countries of Southeast Asia, Central Asia, and Africa, and to some parts of Europe. This was driven by both spirit of adventure and trade in precious metals such as gold, silver, and spices, etc. So, we find many such instances where Indians, migrated to other parts of the world, uh, mainly for trade purposes or for adventure, and also for propagation of religion. So, to quote Desai, he says that the growth of the Indian diaspora was a direct consequence of the expansion and consolidation of the British Empire in the 19th century. At least this is applicable to colonial Indian diaspora. um, I continue, as the empire expanded, it spawned a gradual emigration of traders, entrepreneurs, clerks, bureaucrats, teachers, and professionals to various parts of the empire. So, British Empire once upon a time was considered the most potent empire across the world, and it was said that the sun never sets. So, since we were part of this bigger empire, our own people were taken to different parts of the world for different reasons, contributing to global Indian diaspora. So, if we talk about the phases of Indian diaspora, at least we can mark four phases, like pre-colonial phase, which constitutes ancient and medieval migration of Indians; colonial phase, uh, the migration till 1947; and then the post-colonial phase, when the country became free in 1947 up till 1990s, and then the post liberalization or post globalization phase, which may be dated back to 1990 till the present times. So, When we talk about the pre colonial Indian diaspora, and I intend to talk about pre colonial Indian diaspora in some detail in this particular lecture, we can trace back the migration of Indians way back in history in BCE. Um, to quote Chaudhary and Dharmadhikari, the first evidence of Indian migration is in the 5th century BC, when the colonists from Western India settled in Ceylon, which was finally converted to Buddhism during the reign of Asoka. A few Indian merchants found their way to Malay, Sumatra, Java, and other parts of Southeast Asia and settled there permanently, often marrying native women. So, I regret the inadvertent mistake, the spelling of there. But yeah, if this particular quote is any indicator, we come to know that a lot of Indians, you know, migrated to different parts of the country, even in the earliest times, even before the commencement of the present century. Indians also migrated to China, Korea, Japan, and Tibet, and mostly Buddhism was the common factor. As I told you earlier, lot of people, lot of monks traveled from India to these parts of the world for propagation of Buddhism, which emerged as one of the leading religions in these countries as well. There have been signs of Indian settlements in Zanzibar, Ethiopia, and other countries of the African coast as well. However, according to Ashok Rao, and I quote, the history of migration from India dates back at least 2000 years. The first migration from modern day India took place at around the time of the reign of Emperor Kanishk around the 1st century AD. This group of migrators was the Romani people, now known all around the world as gypsies, from what today is the Indian state of Rajasthan. They immigrated from India towards the northwest and eventually settled in Eastern Europe. So many historians have tried to trace the journey of Indians abroad, and they have come to a consensus that the migration of Indians from India to other parts of the country is not a recent phenomenon. It has a history of more than 1,000 years. Indians also migrated to Southeast Asia when Cholas, a great naval power, conquered what is today Indonesia and Malaysia, as well as the so called Indianized kingdoms of Southeast Asia. Um, there are many researches that point to the fact that the Indian state extended beyond its current boundaries to different parts of uh, Asia, and that is the reason we can still find a very strong presence of Indian temples and Indian culture, especially in Indonesia. There are a lot of temples, so we can find lot of Indians in Indonesia, Thailand, Cambodia, Sumatra, and Bali. Uh, and these people migrated in the ancient times as well. During the 17th and 18th century, there was a very strong Indian merchant diaspora. Um, by merchant diaspora, I mean the people who migrated to other countries for mainly for the purposes of merchandise, that is trading purposes. So we find that a lot of Indians migrated to Central Asia and Russia and established their settlements and witnessed socio-religious customs. Um, we had trading communities like Ismailis, Voraj, and Banyas of the Gujarat region who migrated to East Africa and contributed in a big way to trade and commerce. To quote, Dwivedi, one of the scholars of Indian diaspora, um, and I quote, the historical emigration of Indian diaspora can also be traced back to the time of Emperor Asoka, who attacked Kalinga and followed the progressive steps of Samudragupta towards Southeast Asia for the development of his Indian kingdom, in which mission a large number of Brahmins migrated to the Southeast Asia for their willing purposes of the cultural growth. And I again quote, he says that it is also reported that the Indians, Hindus, or Muslims from the different part of India were found working as bankers and merchants and living with Jews and Armenians in Safavid Persia. So we can see that even in the ancient times, lot of Indian people uh, traveled abroad for different purposes. Even during the Harappan civilization, Indian traders, used to exchange spices, textiles, beads, and metals for gold, silver, and horses with the people of other parts of the world. Later on, the Tamil and Gujarati traders dominated the maritime trade with Asian countries, uh, where they indulged in export of spices, cotton, ivory, and precious stones. So, Indian monks, merchants, and other migrated people created lasting relationships of India with Middle East, Africa, East and Southeast Asian countries. So, Dwivedi also cites some imprints of Hindu diaspora during the Ottoman and Afghan War. So, Indian diaspora can be traced back to times in antiquity, depending on this. During the 18th century, again, Indians migrated, as I said earlier, for trade purposes. However, all of these migrants can't be labeled as Indian diaspora in the real perspective or in the modern sense of the term, because most of them intermingled with the local community and culture, leaving all traces of Indian identity, yet they could be called old diaspora of ancient India. So, earlier also I introduced this concept of old diaspora and new diaspora. And certainly, when we talk about the concerns of diaspora, the old diaspora and new diaspora have, a difference in their, circumstances under which they migrated, and that way their lives have also been impacted that way. So old diaspora, especially the diaspora before the colonial period, was mostly not forced diaspora, where people migrated on their own. So they had a different experience compared to colonial diaspora, which we will be discussing in the next class. So the pre-colonial Indian diaspora, was mainly focused on the cultural exchange uh, between our country and the host country to which our people traveled. They carried their own cultural heritage and their own goods, and it was not only an economic exchange but also a cultural exchange. So they also influenced the host culture wherever they went. Like, for example, we can talk about Hindu and Buddhist influence in Asian countries. We can also talk about the spread of Indian language and literature through Indians, especially the influence of Indian scriptures in Indonesia, Cambodia, and other Asian countries. Uh, we can also talk about the architectural and artistic influence. For example, Angkor Wat Temple or uh, Borobudur Temple in Indonesia, they have been influenced by Indian temple tradition or Indian architecture. So the early migration was mostly marked by trade, commerce, economic ties, and religious objectives between India and other countries. So when we talk about the pre-colonial diaspora, we find that mostly people migrated to other parts of the country for trade and commerce purposes, or cultural exchanges, or propagation of religion in case of Buddhism. So, and many of these people intermingled with the communities in the host countries and permanently assimilated to those countries. Uh, so uh, the problems that we face now in the modern diaspora of discrimination and you know uh, political representation and other things, they did not exist at that point in time, or they were not fully realized by these people. Nonetheless, this provides us a very important insight into Indian diaspora, because ultimately when we talk about a strong Indian diaspora in the modern era, we can not really overlook the earliest diasporas that for the first time propagated Indian culture, Indian trade and commerce overseas. So, with the same in view, we discussed this pre-colonial Indian diaspora, and in the next class, we move on to the colonial diaspora, which plays a very important role in shaping the contemporary diaspora as well, followed by the post-colonial diaspora or contemporary diaspora. So we continue this discussion so that we have a full historical account of Indian diaspora, because ultimately when we talk about the making of diasporic imagination, all these experiences, all these collective experiences will play a very important role in that. So these are some of the suggested readings for your purpose. You can refer to them for further details on pre-colonial diaspora especially. So I thank you very much for your kind attention, and I look forward to further discussion on this topic with you. So thank you very much. Thank you.